Hi folks, I'm sorry I can't be there to accept the award with you today. However, I'm filming on a beach in Haiti and I really can't make it. The truth of the matter is, I'm actually at work doing a 10-hour shift teaching my little monsters. This is hopefully my section of the presentation for the website for the visuals. I was very late joining the group, and at the time there was a debate about what the actual subject could be. And the idea of a monster movie had come around in the form of a visual narrative. So what happened was I kind of ran with that idea as quickly as I could to try and catch up. And what we came up with, or what I came up with, was where different sort of monsters had been allocated. I decided I was going to use the Mad Professor. The physical change would happen through a metamorphosis, where he would grow and he would change physically through the potion that he'd taken. And just to end up being a little bit cheeky on it, I decided in the end to just put a little pun, a little joke, a little twist on the story in the end. Overall, I was very pleased with the page. It was drawn partially on paper and partially through Photoshop. While I think it's a successful piece, the colours are a little bit flat, the anatomy could be better, but overall the layout of the page works very well, and it wouldn't be too out of place in many comic strips. The next piece that we tackled was to do with emotional change, and I spent a little bit of time wrestling on the subject and came up with the idea of this duality of man. And one of the characters who really kind of epitomised that for me was the Two-Face character from Batman. This was also at about the same time that the social conscience lecture was going on, and I thought I'd try and make some kind of political statement. Not that I'm saying that David Cameron is two-faced, but, well, yeah. So I actually took his image and used it to form the basis of my Two-Face, and started sketching directly into Photoshop. And I think it was about this point that I decided that the rest of this module needed to be electronic. What I ended up doing is using kind of a visual painting technique, and used a tracing and collected some images from the internet in order to discover the structure of the bones and the face and reveal that kind of secondary face that's in the character. I found that the full-length pose didn't work particularly well. Once I'd gotten everything in there, it was a very exciting project to do. Once I'd painted everything in and got it finished, it just was too long. The second hand with the gun in wasn't dynamic enough. I could have done a little bit more with that, I think. So what I made the compromise with was to crop it in and get him sort of exposed from the background frame, and produced the blurry coin, which I'm kind of a little bit proud of, that throws you back or forward into the shot. And it's a piece that I like particularly well. And certainly was the first starting of a digital painting process that I've enjoyed throughout the rest of the module. It was then time to move on to the next set of images, which was to do with environmental change. Now, I'd been considering what I know as gestaltist images, which are optical illusions that are created. And this is in the backdrop of the viewing artwork and visual literacy now lectures. And the question I need to ask is do you see a duck or do you see a rabbit? If you can see both, you're doing well. But these images are they're littered throughout the ages, and if you run a very quick search on optical illusion skulls on the internet, you'll find quite an array of different imagery that's available. And it was in the backdrop of this and the social conscience lecture again that I decided to have a try of my own. I made an attempt at trying to highlight the issues around the poverty in Africa. This was on the back again of a social conscience lecture and work that we'd done. and using images off the internet, sort of composited them together in Photoshop in order to begin the beginnings of this image that's here before you. But I found that it was a little too obtuse. It was too hardcore for my liking, and I found actually hunting down the imagery a little bit harrowing. So decided to change tact on it and had a little bit of a search. In the course of my research, I'd found this image from a young lady in Canada who had taken the photographs of a desert floor, which sort of epitomised to me sort of one of the main reasons for, the environmental change that causes damage, and tried to get a very subtle image in there, to the point where I needed to get my 5-year-old daughter to check that she could actually see it because I'd been working on it so long. And I think it's a successful piece. It seems that everybody can kind of see what's there, and it gets you to look once or twice and analyse what's going on. And for me, that's kind of pretty much sort of the success of a good image. If you're spending more than a glancing look at something, then surely that's a good thing. I then moved on to the animation, which the theme for it had been decided was life and death. And the main inspiration that I had was things eating each other in order to either kill something else or extend their own life. So I moved on from I found a food chain image that was lying around on the internet, and again purely through digitally found a way through Photoshop to import that into Flash, which I thought was a necessity that apparently we had to use, and animated it through to its final conclusion. Potentially the hardest thing that I found throughout the whole of the project was having to learn on the job the various different packages that are available with CS. So I had a really large learning curve with Photoshop, Flash, and various other elements. But particularly, probably the biggest headache was finding a way to render the final image and get it up onto a website. Overall, I think it's quite a successful piece. Just really can't get that tune out of my head while I was drawing it. And that's the reason that it's in the animation. For the final piece in the series, I was a little short on time, so I just finished watching Series 3 of The Walking Dead and thought that might be an interesting project to sort of have a look at and see how that worked out. So I took an image of myself and drew that in, then added some composite images from Photoshop and put that through the mill and sort of came out with the first image. And this face rot thing started, which I decided to develop further. I came again across a number of images and a number of techniques using Photoshop, and this slow progression kind of happened, and I managed to produce these images quite quickly, whereas 5 months ago it would have been a real headache to start and do this. Now, while the finished images, I don't actually think of it that fabulous, they start a beginning of it. I've certainly seen zombie images done a lot better, with a lot more finesse than I can manage. But at this point in stage of kind of learning things, I think there's kind of a fair amount of success that are kind of happening with it. But I seem to be dangling with, am I photoshopping or am I illustrating? And that's a problem that I need to resolve sort of fairly quickly. All of the images were then uploaded to the Visuals website, which I would love to take credit for, but it's really the people who were there with you today that deserve the true credit that's due to them. It's been an extraordinary project, very time consuming. However, I've learned a lot about myself and a lot of very good techniques that I'm intending on using forward and developing within my own work. For the moment though, if you've managed to sit through 10 minutes of me rambling on, thank you very much for listening. In the meantime, I wish you all a very, very good summer, and I'll see you all in the new year.